The smell was unbearable. Construction workers, hired to renovate an aging kitchen, had barely broken through the floor when they hit concrete that wasn't supposed to be there. Beneath it, tucked just above the septic tank, they found a battered passport. It belonged to Ashley Bocanegra, the woman who had supposedly vanished to San Diego 4 years earlier. Her son, Daniel, dropped to his knees. What is her passport doing here? Minutes later, police unearthed the unimaginable: human remains buried under the home. Ashley hadn't run away. She never left. She had been there all along, rotting beneath the feet of her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend. This wasn't just a disappearance. This was a secret burial, a cover-up, and a betrayal that shocked Arizona to its core. Prescott Valley, Arizona was the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked. Life was quiet. Families knew their neighbors. Kids rode their bikes down sun-baked streets while dogs barked in tidy backyards. It was a town where bad things happened somewhere else, never here. That's why everyone was stunned when Ashley Bocanegra suddenly vanished. Ashley was 52 years old, a widow, and a mother of 2. She had lived in Prescott Valley for most of her life. After losing her husband in a car accident, she raised her children, Tessa and Daniel, on her own. Money was tight, but Ashley worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table and clothes on their backs. She was tough but kind. She didn't complain. She just kept going. To Daniel, she was a hero. To neighbors, she was the kind of woman who'd shovel your sidewalk in winter or bring soup if you were sick. To Tessa, well, that was complicated. Tessa was always a little wild. By the time she turned 16, she was sneaking out at night, drinking, and missing school. Ashley tried to rein her in, grounding her, taking away her phone, but nothing worked. They fought all the time. Shouting matches echoed through the house nearly every weekend. Things got worse when Tessa got pregnant. Her boyfriend, Kyle Ramirez, was a local dropout with no job and no plan. When Ashley found out, she was devastated. She believed in family, in structure, in doing things the right way. Tessa didn't care. She said she was keeping the baby, and no, she and Kyle weren't getting married. That only made Ashley more upset. But even through her heartbreak, Ashley stepped in. She bought diapers. She stayed up all night with the baby. She even paid the bills when Kyle and Tessa had no money. Ashley did what she always did, she handled it. But inside, she was crumbling. Daniel saw it. He still lived in the house back then. He saw his mom getting thinner, quieter. She worked long hours, came home to more stress, and never caught a break. Tessa and Kyle didn't help. They treated Ashley like a built-in babysitter. They partied, they slept late, and left her holding the baby, literally. Then, on August 12, 2017, everything changed. Daniel came home from his weekend job to find his mom gone. Tessa was in the kitchen, acting casual, flipping through her phone. The baby was asleep in the next room. "Where's Mom?" Daniel asked. "She went to San Diego," Tessa said without even looking up. "San Diego?" He blinked. "Since when?" Tessa shrugged. "Said she needed a break. Took off this morning. I think she's staying at that old trailer she owns by the coast." Daniel was confused. His mom hadn't mentioned a trip. She'd been working overtime all week. Why would she suddenly leave? Still, it wasn't impossible. Ashley did own a small trailer in San Diego, left to her by her cousin years ago. It wasn't fancy, just a rusted-out old thing by a quiet beach. Sometimes she joked about retiring there someday. Maybe she really had needed to get away. But something didn't sit right. As days passed, there were no calls. No texts. Just one short message from her Facebook account, "Taking time for me." Please don't worry. Daniel replied. No answer. Another week passed. Then 2 more vague Facebook posts showed up: sunset photos, a blurry beach selfie, a random quote about healing. But they didn't sound like his mom. Ashley loved emojis. She always used too many exclamation marks. These posts? Cold. Robotic. Daniel messaged again. Still no reply. He called her. Straight to voicemail. Something felt wrong. Ashley had always been close with her kids, especially Daniel. She called him every week, even if they lived in the same house. She left him notes in his lunchbox until high school. If she really needed a break, wouldn't she at least talk to him? When he brought it up to Tessa, she snapped. She just needed space. God, Daniel, leave her alone. But Daniel couldn't shake the feeling. Every time he opened Facebook and saw one of those weird, short posts, his stomach twisted. It didn't sound like her. It didn't feel like her. He tried to track the location of the posts, but Ashley's settings were private. He called friends in San Diego. No one had seen her. Even her neighbors in Prescott Valley were starting to ask questions. I saw Kyle working on the backyard again, one neighbor said. Is your mom still in California? Daniel didn't know what to say. He was just as confused as everyone else. Then came Ashley's birthday in October. She always made a big deal out of birthdays, even her own. She'd bake a cake, throw a tiny family dinner, post selfies with candles and her goofy party hat. This year, nothing. Just one post, happy birthday to me birthday cake, no photo. No emojis. No tags. Just, strange. Daniel messaged again. Where are you, Mom? Nothing. In early 2018, 6 months after Ashley had vanished, Daniel finally filed a missing person report with the Prescott Valley Police Department. But the officer barely glanced up from his desk. She's active on Facebook. That's not a missing person, the cop said flatly. Adults can leave if they want to. But her phone's off. No one's talked to her. Her friends in California haven't seen her either. Maybe she's just lying low. We can't do much if she's still posting online. Daniel left the station shaking. It felt like nobody cared. He returned home angry, frustrated, and overwhelmed. He passed by Tessa on the couch, scrolling through Instagram. Kyle was in the backyard, hammering something under the hot Arizona sun. And Daniel couldn't stop asking himself, what if she never left? Months passed. Daniel moved out. Got a new job in Tucson. Life moved forward, but the gnawing ache in his chest stayed. His mother, the strongest person he knew, was just gone. Still, the Facebook page posted now and then. Missing the ocean. Some peace at last. Life is funny sometimes. No pictures. No phone calls. No live videos. Just empty words floating on a screen. By 2021, nearly 4 years had gone by. Daniel couldn't take it anymore. He decided to return home to help fix the house up. Tessa and Kyle were still living there with their child, but the place was falling apart. The roof leaked. The floors creaked. The kitchen was in rough shape. He offered to help pay for renovations. Hired a small construction crew. Told himself it was time to clean things up, for Mom, he told himself, for whenever she comes back. The crew arrived in July. They started with the kitchen. Ripping up cracked tiles. Removing old cabinets. Clearing out space for something new. Then, it happened. Hey, one of the workers called out, there's something weird under here. Daniel stepped into the room. The smell hit him first, like sewage and rot. Probably the septic tank, he said, covering his nose. But the workers kept digging. The tile gave way to fresh cement. And under that cement, something glinted in the dust. A passport. Daniel froze. He reached down, hands trembling, and picked it up. Ashley Bocanegra. His mother's photo stared back at him. A few feet away, they found her driver's license, and a necklace Daniel had given her when he was 10. His blood ran cold. He dropped everything and drove straight to the police station. This time, they listened. That night, investigators sealed off the home. Tessa and Kyle were questioned. A forensics team returned the next morning. And Daniel? He stood outside the yellow tape, staring at the cracked floor, knowing deep in his heart what they would find next. As the sun rose over Prescott Valley, the ground gave up its secret. The heat was brutal that morning in Prescott Valley. The sun had barely risen, but sweat was already rolling down Daniel Bocanegra's back as he stood across the street from his childhood home. Yellow police tape flapped in the breeze. Crime scene vans lined the driveway. The kitchen window, the same one he used to sneak cookies through, was open, and inside, detectives moved slowly and carefully. Daniel didn't say a word. He couldn't. Hours ago, he found his mother's passport and driver's license buried under the kitchen floor. Ashley Bocanegra, the woman who raised him, worked herself to the bone for him, had supposedly vanished to California 4 years earlier. But now, there was no doubt in his mind. She never left. He was standing in front of her grave. Inside, the smell was worse than anything the investigators expected. It wasn't just sewage, it was something deeper, heavier, like the kind of rot that seeped into your skin. As the forensics team tore through the fresh concrete slab poured over the septic tank, the scent grew stronger. Then, they saw it. The tank had been sealed with several layers of cement, some of it still newer than the rest. The top was cracked in places, likely from built-up pressure. When they finally pried it open, every officer in the room flinched and stepped back. There, curled up in the black water, was a decomposed human body. No clothes. No ID. Just bones, some flesh, and long strands of hair still floating like seaweed in a grave made of waste. Even without confirmation, Daniel knew. It was her. Back at the station, Tessa sat in silence. She looked smaller than usual, her eyeliner smudged and her hands shaking. Kyle Ramirez, her boyfriend, was pacing behind her, running his fingers through greasy hair. "Your mother never left for California," the lead detective said quietly. "You know that, don't you?" Tessa stared at the table, lips pressed shut. Kyle kept pacing. "We found her body," the detective continued. "Under the kitchen. In the septic tank." Silence. "Then, that's not possible," Kyle muttered, barely audible. But it was possible. It was real. The detective slid Ashley's passport across the table, along with the necklace Daniel had given her in 5th grade, a silver pendant shaped like a heart, now darkened and rusted with time. Tessa burst into tears. Hours passed. Daniel waited in a small room down the hall, knees bouncing, fingers twitching. Every few minutes, he stood up, walked in a circle, then sat back down. He felt like he was drowning in concrete, like part of him was still in that kitchen, still holding that passport, still hoping this wasn't real. But it was. A female officer stepped in. Her face was unreadable. "Mr. Bocanegra," she said gently, "your sister confessed." Daniel froze. Confessed? He didn't understand. Confessed to what? And then it hit him. Tessa didn't just know what happened. She did it. Tessa's full confession came in sobs and broken words. She admitted everything. The arguments with her mom. The nights she screamed that Ashley didn't understand her. The guilt she felt after giving birth too young, after dropping out, after watching Ashley do everything for her while she partied. And then, the breaking point. August 12, 2017. She and Kyle were fighting with Ashley again. Ashley had said something about taking the baby and filing for custody. She said Tessa and Kyle weren't fit to be parents. She said we were ruining the baby's life, Tessa cried. She said we'd never get our act together. That night, they argued until nearly 2 a.m. The baby was crying. Kyle was furious. Tessa was shaking with rage. That's when Kyle whispered it. What if we didn't have to live like this anymore? Tessa said she didn't take him seriously. But the next day, he had a plan. He told her to lure Ashley into the basement. Said he had something to show her. Tessa hesitated, but Kyle pushed her. Told her they'd be free. No more yelling. No more control. Just them and their kid. A fresh start. Tessa called Ashley down, said she had a surprise. Ashley followed, tired and worn out, still in her work clothes. She never saw the hammer coming. Kyle struck first, 3 times to the back of her head. She dropped, bleeding, but still breathing. She was making this noise, Tessa whispered. Like a whimper. Like she was trying to speak. Kyle handed her a knife. Finish it, he told her. She did. 6 stabs to the chest. 2 to the neck. 1 long slice across the arm as Ashley tried to block the blows. Then silence. Afterward, they wrapped Ashley's body in a sheet and dragged her upstairs. They lifted the septic tank lid in the kitchen and dumped her in. Kyle left to buy cement, sand, and gravel from a nearby hardware store. They poured concrete over the tank and tiled the floor. They thought that was it. Over the next few years, gases from Ashley's decomposing body caused the concrete to crack again and again. Kyle patched it up each time. Neighbors saw him mixing cement at odd hours. They thought it was just maintenance. But it wasn't. It was a cover-up. The lies didn't stop there. Tessa took over Ashley's Facebook page. She posted vague updates and sunset photos she found online. She replied to friends, pretended everything was fine. She even used the account to wish herself a happy birthday, just to make it seem real. The illusion worked. For 4 years, no one asked too many questions. Until Daniel came home. Until the floor split open. Until the truth rose to the surface, with the stench of death. That night, Daniel drove back to the house. It was quiet now, wrapped in police tape, windows dark. The backyard swing set still creaked in the breeze. His mom had built it for Tessa when she was little. Ashley used to push her for hours, laughing, clapping every time she went high. Daniel stood there and cried for the first time in years. He wasn't crying just because his mom was gone. He was crying because she had been right there. The whole time. While he slept. While he ate. While he tried to move on with his life. She was right beneath them. And no one knew. The town of Prescott Valley was shaken. News stations showed aerial shots of the house. The headline read, "Mother found buried under kitchen floor, daughter and boyfriend charged." People couldn't believe it. Some neighbors admitted they had smelled something odd for years, but never imagined this. How could a daughter do that to her own mother? One woman said on live TV. The truth was, it didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly. With anger. With resentment. With poor choices and no accountability. And in the end, it ended with a hammer and a knife. The case made national news. People across the country were glued to the details. True crime podcasts started picking it up. Everyone wanted to know how it happened. Why it happened. What would happen next? Back in the holding cell, Tessa stared at the wall. Her baby had been taken into protective custody. Kyle refused to speak to anyone. His lawyer told him to stay quiet. And Daniel? He was just trying to breathe. Trying to live in a world where the sister he once built blanket forts with had become a murderer. Where the house he grew up in had turned into a tomb. A week later, detectives made one final discovery. Hidden behind an old closet door in the garage was a shoebox. Inside, handwritten letters. Dozens of them. Each one signed in Ashley's handwriting. Each one addressed to Daniel. The dates? All of them were written after Ashley's supposed disappearance. But how? Who wrote them? And what secrets did they hold? Inside a worn shoebox buried in the back of the garage closet, police found over 24 handwritten letters. They were dated months, even years, after Ashley Bocanegra had supposedly disappeared. All of them were addressed to Daniel. All of them were signed in her handwriting. But how? Ashley was already gone by then. The autopsy confirmed she died the same night she left for San Diego. So, who wrote the letters? Forensics teams were called in. They analyzed the handwriting, the paper, even the ink. And then the truth surfaced, again. Tessa wrote them. The letters were part of a backup plan. In case anyone ever doubted the Facebook posts, Tessa planned to find the letters later and use them as proof Ashley had really gone off the grid. It was sloppy, disturbing, and incredibly personal. In one letter, Ashley supposedly wrote, "Daniel, I hope you don't hate me for leaving. I just needed space to breathe. You were always my heart." But Daniel could feel the lie in every word. He knew his mother. Knew her voice. Her way of speaking. These weren't her words. It was his sister's fantasy, a desperate attempt to keep the secret buried. Only this time, the secret had risen to the surface. The murder of Ashley Bocanegra shook Arizona. The trial was public, painful, and followed closely by true crime fans, media outlets, and locals alike. Tessa Bocanegra was charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and abuse of a corpse. Kyle Ramirez faced the same charges. Prosecutors painted a chilling picture, a mother doing everything she could to help her troubled daughter, only to be repaid with betrayal, violence, and a shallow grave under the floor she once swept clean every night. Tessa's lawyers argued she had been manipulated by Kyle. That she was scared. That she was young and overwhelmed. But the confession was clear. The Facebook deception. The letters. The silence. The body. The jury didn't take long. Both were found guilty. Kyle Ramirez received life without parole. Tessa Bocanegra was sentenced to 45 years in prison, eligible for parole after 30. Daniel never returned to the house. He sold it within months of the trial. Too many memories. Too many ghosts. He moved to Flagstaff, started fresh, and tried to live again. But some wounds don't heal. Some questions never find answers. What broke Tessa? Why didn't Kyle stop? How long had they planned it? And worst of all, could he have seen this coming? Ashley was buried with full honors in a peaceful cemetery outside town. Hundreds attended. Friends, neighbors, co-workers, even people who never knew her but felt touched by her story. On her gravestone, Daniel engraved a line she used to tell him as a kid. Be kind. Be strong. Be better than what broke you. And in the years that followed, true crime podcasts, YouTube channels, and documentary crews would revisit the case again and again. The story had everything: family, betrayal, a cover-up, a secret burial. But for Daniel, it wasn't just a story. It was his life. It was his mother. This case wasn't about strangers. It wasn't about monsters lurking in the dark. It was about a mother and daughter living under the same roof, and how love twisted into resentment. How pressure turned into violence. How secrets can rot beneath the surface, until the truth breaks through the floor. And that's what happened. Ashley's truth, Her pain, her strength, her final moments, they refuse to stay buried. Tessa and Kyle are behind bars. Daniel is rebuilding his life. And the town of Prescott Valley will never look at its quiet streets the same way again. But now that the story has been told, we leave you with a few haunting questions. Do you believe Tessa truly felt remorse for what she did? Can someone who commits such a brutal act ever be redeemed? And what would you have done if you were Daniel, if the truth about your own family was hiding right under your feet? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And remember, sometimes the darkest crimes don't happen in back alleys or distant cities. They happen at home. Subscribe to our channel to enjoy more of these true crime stories.